after watching this video, I highly recommend that you watch my video refuting net neutrality. Once you've done so, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. The internet is an equalizing force, accessible by billionaires and poor people alike. A utility that should be available to all without unnecessary and greedy hindrance from corporations whose main incentive is, after all, to make profit. Net neutrality guarantees this equality by making sure that internet service providers, or ISPs, do not discriminate based on different types of content or internet communications online. Such shady activity is wrong, and we need to ban it. Because net neutrality wasn't ratified until 2015, the main argument that the opposition of net neutrality uses is, look, the internet didn't have net neutrality for all of these decades it was developing, and it worked perfectly fine. Well, the reality is, no, it didn't. Before 2015, there is a long list of abuses by ISPs, whether it be a certain website or a certain type of downloadable content. An article on freepress.net lays out a list of these abuses, which are not nearly talked about enough. For example, in 2005, North Carolina ISP Madison River Communications blocked the Voice over Internet Protocol service Vonage. Also in 2005, Canada's second largest telecommunications company, TELUS, began blocking access to a server that hosted a website supporting a labor strike, which would directly disadvantage their company. Of course, this is blatant suppression of freedom of speech. Another case happened in 2007 when Comcast itself secretly began blocking peer-to-peer technologies, which are computer networks in which each computer can act as a server for another. This list goes on and on. The opposers of net neutrality claim that ISPs wouldn't risk limiting speeds to certain websites because they'd get bad press, when we see by this long list that this is simply not true. They will do it. They have. ISPs have blocked websites in the past, so it's not unreasonable to assume that this is something that they will do once again in the future. The concept of net neutrality is kind of unique because it's one of the only methods of government intervention which actually promotes a free market. Both sides of America's political spectrum have agreed that monopolies are bad, which is why in 1890 Congress unanimously passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, which outlawed monopolies. While there technically isn't a nationwide monopoly of internet providing services, which would be illegal, in some areas there isn't much of a choice, and certain ISPs do claim partial monopolies of some areas in the country. Without net neutrality, if that one ISP that is in charge of that entire rural area decides to slow connections to certain websites, the people living in that area will have no choice but to accept these circumstances, or they'll have no internet at all. Of course, this is nowhere near fair. Net neutrality is necessary in order to confirm that actions like this don't happen, because they have. The law of net neutrality not only promotes the values of a free market, but forces ISPs to treat all consumers fairly, and this is necessary for the preservation of access to the world's ultimate equalizing force, the place where a rich, wealthy individual can get the same amount of information as a less wealthy individual. This is the internet. One of the largest criticisms of the repeal of net neutrality is the potential for ISPs to charge different websites different rates depending on what type of content they produce, and this can be incredibly dangerous for startups. There are already two massive video streaming websites, YouTube and Netflix, but let's say a startup company, a new video streaming website, wanted to make it in the business. Without net neutrality, ISPs could be able to charge video streaming websites at higher rates, and of course YouTube and Netflix can afford these rates, but a startup company may not be able to. See, the other side believes in entrepreneurship and lowering taxes in order to promote business, yet On this issue, they want to give corporations the power to decide whether or not smaller companies can succeed. Corporations should not have this much power. The internet at this point should be considered a public utility, and as a public utility, the internet should not be a place which has different prices and rates decided by corporations, which can really abuse both consumers and small companies. Net neutrality was repealed in 2017 by 3 unelected members of the FCC. This decision was incredibly harmful to the progression and prosperity of the internet, so it's time that we reverse it.